Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption.
Hey, good evening everybody. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. It's TGYF, I guess. Pretty much sure that I'm ready for a weekend. It's been a hot one here. I don't know about where everybody else is. I understand in the south and in the east it's pretty humid, so thankfully where I am it's relatively dry, but hey, 92 degrees it's still warm. So, but look, the heat is on in Iraq. You know, those folks have to deal with heat that we don't even understand, but the point is many things are happening, which is, I think, is what's causing that heat to go up, and that's a good thing. You have Mohammed Shia Al-Sudani issued some directives to implement the projects and targets contained in the government program after the issuance and enforcement of the federal general budget law and its instructions. So this has been a few days ago. Don't get me wrong, it's still relevant and important. Al-Sudani basically directed the ministries and agencies not associated with a ministry to immediately start implementing projects. That's what we want to see, and we're going to stick with that. Basically, the implementation, in light of all the allocations and the framework government's 5 priorities, are included in the ministerial curriculum that they're offering out to the folks, and then the focus is going to be on the service projects with advanced rates of achievement, and they have time frames for this. It's basically going to serve large sectors the citizens rely on. And basically the Ministry of Planning is providing these requirements, and they have an agenda no later than August 15th, 2023. That's an important time frame. That's Al-Sudani's time frame, and he's basically going on. The Prime Minister has directed the Ministries of Planning and Finance prepare detailed positions on financial allocations. We've talked about allocations, distributions, and we're going to talk about spending at the end where I'm at. I think I'm going to come around full circle to show that that's what they're going to end up doing is spending, and that's going to be part of what we're looking for. There's going to be some other little bits and pieces I think I can throw in that are not necessarily in print, but the fact remains is that they're being openly talked about, and they're not a joke, they're for real. So let's see, this next one was basically the operational and the investment side that we talked about in our previous video. So it is scheduled to be in accordance with the budget law and the budget law's instructions for no later than August 24th, 2023. So basically, Al-Sudani put out time frames. Those are his time frames. They're not mine. They're not militiamen and crews time frames. We're just telling you what's in the public, what's in the news. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's pretty cool. The next one is the Al-Sudani Bank announces the direct departments to activate their collection system and collect money electronically. We've all know that electronic systems have been around, but now that they're getting down to the wire and they're getting ready to go to the global financial system, they're going to need that revenue stream to come in through the ports, through the port of Fao, for instance, through all the different governance. They're going to have that along with, not to mention, the point of sale systems. So basically what they're saying here is that the statement from this bank is in accordance with government directives, because the government's basically saying we need this e-government, we need these e-electronic systems, we need all of that digitization that we've been watching manifest. Even though we've talked about it for 4 or 5 years at least, the fact remains is that they're at that stage now where they're actually activating, implementing, and ready to distribute and spend money. And that's going to come from that 23, 24, 25 budget. Here it says, in accordance with the government's directives in implementing the electronic payment system, using a point of sale devices in the ministries, in the state institutions, and along with the private sector, by collecting invoice amounts, fees from beneficiaries electronically through their bank cards. They're going to be able, those that are wishing to pay with cards, Al-Sudani Bank announces that the departments, they have initiated activation for the electronic collection and transition to electronic transactions and collection of funds through the modern electronic systems. Look, the SWIFT system and the IceCutta system, the Buna platform, all of those things are basically systems that are in place that have been updated, they've been modified, and now they're just waiting for Iraq to be ready to go to that global financial system. And once they get to that stage, they're going to be an Article 8 IMF compliant currency. That's our expectation. I hope that's your expectations, because effectively that's what they've been saying for quite some time. But if you look at some of these departments that they have here, it says they have the Directorate of the Police Fund, the Directorate of the Passport Affairs, the Ministry's Offices of the Education, the Directorate of the Financial Affairs, General Directorate of Training and Educational Development, Public and Private Education, of Curriculums, okay, Industrial Development, Healthcare Development, Shiite Endowment Petroleum Products Authority, Construction, Housing. That's all basically what they're going to do and have to rebuild this country with infrastructure, education, healthcare. All of those things they're being talked about. So you can see that activation of these collection systems, and being that it's going to be continuous, the frequency is increasing through the state departments. These services are going to be in accordance with the government's program in promoting the culture of electronic payment. And basically what they're going to be doing is reducing the use of paper money. It's just somewhat similar here in the United States and other places in the world. Pretty much everybody kind of swipes a card. Whether we like that or not, it definitely goes against some folks' best interest and or interest at all, but that's the way it's going to work. They're just going to reduce the cash. They're not saying there's not going to be any cash. It just says they're just going to reduce the paper, and that goes for, digital files, PDF files. Digitize your business. Basically, in a business that I run, have for many, many, many years, I don't even get phone calls anymore from clients. It's all email. It's all digital. So they're going to be doing this similar situations. So just basically commercial payments and collection operations. They're just going to be through point of sale primarily, and they're going to be effective. They're going to be fast. They're going to be instantaneous. And so basically there's nothing wrong with having a safe and a transparent environment. So I don't think anybody here thinking that modernizing the systems in Iraq is necessarily a bad thing. In fact, the faster they do it, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see how this plays out on that end. Look, the next thing is that the draft oil and gas law. Look, we all know that this has been around since 2003 or to present. And we all know that they keep saying that they're going to have things done. Effectively, I believe that these guys have already done almost all of the legwork, but they keep putting it out that, here we are, the member of the Oil, Gas, and Natural Resources Committee, Al-Sudani, revealed important details about the draft oil and gas law. And then they add in, while Egypt disclosed the contracts of the Kurdistan region and the companies. So basically it sounds like not only are they talking about the oil and gas law, but they're also talking about people or countries that are going to possibly be involved in some of those contracts. And this gentleman says that there are committees formed by the federal government and the Kurdistan region that have agreed on a draft oil and gas law, which consists of about 40 articles. He's basically stating that they're in advanced steps of the government and concerned committees with the federal minister of oil holding sessions and workshops the last few days about the oil producing provinces. Okay, so basically he's saying that they're, quote, very advanced steps in accelerating the legislation of the oil and gas law. And then they go on to say the oil producing governance will be members of the Sovereign Council, and the National Oil Company will be part of this law, and the government will not find a solution to the outstanding problems other than approving the law. So that's what they're basically stating. We're going to approve the law. End of story. So that's phenomenal, because the United Treasury account, that is for the citizens' money through all these electronic systems that they were talking about, all those different entities that we talked about. Those are going to be all inclusive, and they're going to get paid from that stuff. So the citizens are going to get a lot of benefits from these things. And based off the approving of the law, the only way to go is to approve it. Effectively, that's what they've said. And there you have it. They have had a international tribunal issuance of an order to require the oil to be distributed properly, and they're going to follow through with that. And then here it says Muhammad Shia Al-Sudani has a new vision of the form of the relationship between the center and the region. My view is it's unity, okay? Because he's saying that they're going to have a relationship between the center and the region. And the way things are running at this particular time and phase that they're in, that unity is one account for everybody. And so that to me is a very powerful circumstance. It says the Ministry of Oil and the Ministry of Wealth. I like that part. The Ministry of Wealth. This country is going to be very, very wealthy. And who did they talk to? They talked about the central region, which is Baghdad, etc., and the Kurdistan regional government of Iraq, and who else? Experts. They're legal experts. So this has been bantered around for a long time, and now they're down to the wire. One of the things that they're going to have on the table is evaluation. They're going to have to know how much are they going to be able to get, to be able to divide, to be allocated, dispersed, and spent. That's how simple that is. That's what these guys are doing. That's what I see them doing. We all should be very, very impressed at this stage of the game, or just like, feeling a sigh of relief, because we've been waiting a long time for this. So here, this article is going to be a little bit time consuming, but man, it's packed with everything that we've been just talking about of where they're headed and what they're doing. And I'll try to go through it as quick as I possibly can, but it's based off the Development Fund for Iraq. Basically, it's a package of achievements that the country's already done. It's including and allowing various forms of financing partnerships, such as loans, international grants, allocations from the general budgets, 2023, 24, 25 budget, and they also the financing of bonds, local and international partnerships with the private sector, all of these things. They're pointing out that the Development Path Project would be the real nucleus of the work of the Iraqi fund. They're going to use this term, real nucleus, a couple of times in this article. But basically, what is the nucleus? That's the very center of the whole process. The development sector, that's going to be development of the country. That's going to be the rebuild out. That's going to be the infrastructure. So hopefully you guys are all up to date and understand that. But here they're talking about it again, and it's Muhammad Shia Al-Sudani, the Prime Minister. The cabinet approved the system of the Iraqi Fund for Development, and we're working to form board of directors. And we have received offers from Arab and foreign investment funds to participate in the fund. And we also have received requests from the private sector, implementing projects with the Iraqi Fund Development firsthand or side by side. Basically, they're saying that the fund can achieve many economic circumstances and development goals, foremost of which is the possibility of improving the investment environment. That's what we're talking about, the private sector, launching sustainable development. So it means that it's going to be around for a long time, finding solutions to economic, social, and environmental crisis. Well, I'm not sure what crises they are, but I know that they have some water issues and things of that nature. But it's basically stating is that they are creating a qualitative change in the adoption of technology and modern systems in management, as well as the ability to finance these projects that address the gaps in the power of these ministries. So they're moving towards telling the citizens and us that what we have planned for this, for the development of the country of Iraq. And so these are big things, and especially at this stage in time when they're basically saying that they have time frames, they have back walls to be able to do these projects. Okay, so keep that in mind, right? It says to fund the fund can also create job opportunities through investment projects, develop human capital and skills to match market requirements, in addition to its ability to attract the financial mass of the private sector and employ its projects. Look, the private sector has a lot of money and they're willing to invest if the environment's right, but they're not going to come in if they're not or have not done the things that needed to be done. And some of those things were the fighting of corruption, arresting people, making sure that the systems are working properly. For instance, this new systems and this new way of not, sidestepping the parallel market, they are not going to allow that anymore. The black market is going to go away, and we've already been over some of that, but I'm not going to talk about it at this point in time. But the financial advisor to the Prime Minister, his name is Mahar Mohammed Saleh. Basically, he says the Iraqi fund is of the strategic methods for investing in major development projects across the provinces. It has the ability to provide backlinks. And so he's explaining that the important directions that they're headed are sustainability of financing throughout the life of the implementation of the strategic project without stumbling. Effectively, look, if you're going to start a finance process, you want to support them through the life of that project, which means that they have a high implementation efficiency through a network of interconnected investments. So everybody's going to be working together in some sort of interconnectivity, as well as allowing various forms of financing partnerships. We've talked about that, as loans, international grants, and international partnerships with the private sector. So again, this might seem a little bit boring, but it's actually very powerful data because these guys are talking about working with that private sector. They never worked with the private sector in 1310. They just really didn't do that. Now they're getting ready to do it outside of that number, as far as I'm concerned anyway. Here he says, this financial advisor, he says the development path for the project will be the real nucleus. So that it's going to be the center of the process, and it's going to be the center of the work of the Iraq Development Fund. It says it's associated with networks of industrial cities. Think about how much the cost of an industrial cities. We're not talking about one, they're talking about many. Basically, the infrastructure and financing, executive investment arm, whether independent of the government or through strategic partnerships with the private sector. So they're telling you they have a laundry list of entities that are willing to come in and help and create this environment. And they give a couple of examples that they have 3 pillars, for instance. The first one is economic and engineering planning for the strategic projects that will undertake and approve. So they're looking at undertaking and approving strategic projects. So strategic projects are usually not very small. He goes on and says the second is to the establishment of an administrative and engineering technical apparatus that follows up with the implementation of projects upon approval and monitoring the completion rates, accuracy of the implementation. And they go on to say that controlling of exchange. They're going to have when you say control of exchange, that means you're probably going to have, value-related aspects when you exchange things like that. So here it says the third pillar is concerned with the financing management, the flow of incoming and outgoing funds. So they're talking about money exchange, meaning the accuracy of the spending on the projects. We come right back to it. We said that allocations, disbursement, and spending. They're talking about spending. We're not talking about spending at 1310 as far as I can tell. If they are, it's going to be really expensive, and I don't think their budget works that way. In fact, I think our militiaman and crew in our resources section of our Discord room has quite a bit of information for you folks to see and read for yourselves that 1310 just doesn't work, okay? Let's see. The economist, Dr. Hussein, he comes out and says, the establishment of this fund is an important direction. It's based off sound thinking. It's adopted by scientific solutions. It takes in the serious and readiness and the speedy implementation of it He just is saying, look, this is a good thing. Here it is, quote, a good starting point for the government in its early works. So the government in its early works, Al-Sudani's government is relatively new, in effect, in comparison to others. And here this new project that they're going to have is in the early works. So it's not just getting started, it's been underway and it's still moving forward. And he goes on to say that he urges that this whole system should be independent financially and administratively and not be under the umbrella of any specific ministry, but rather be linked to the Prime Minister or the Council of Ministers in order for it to have freedom of movement, implementing government policy, and the activities for which it's established. So they're just reiterating the fact is that if you play by the rules, you do it properly, and you do it within this managerial system, you should be successful. Basically, the importance of this fund, that it's working in a private sector way in management, employment, investment, and contracting with experts and consultants with their specializations. It needs to enable it to perform its work in the best way. Well, this article is definitely a powerful article because that's what it takes to be successful. And at this stage of the game, that article is just flat out packed with data, giving you the information that they need. And if they're going to be, if this article effectively describes the nucleus, it's the center pivot, I would highly suggest you read it. We have it in our Patreon forum and in our Discord, and it's basically, the headline is, so if you want to research it in our room, it's Development Fund, a step for economic advancement and investment revival. Powerful statement, definitely a powerful statement. And so the next and last thing is we have a article that goes on and complements some of this stuff. It's basically coming from the central bank. The central bank article says its title says legal. The central bank's decision to merge exchange offices is arbitrary. Well, this is somebody's opinion. Look, what we just talked about was what they were going to do with their investments, moving forward for their infrastructure, etc. Well, this guy's a legal expert. His name is Wale Munther. He described the central bank's decision to merge small exchange companies with some of them in order to allow them to enter the currency sale window as an arbitrary move. Look, there's going to be a lot of whiners out there that aren't happy that they're getting rid of the dollar. And they're going to slow down the ability for people to be able to get dollar anymore. And that's going away. The interface that they have set up is going to be reduced. And so people that cannot get the dollar, they're not going to be too happy about it. And basically, this gentleman is saying that the central bank exerts an indirect pressure on exchange companies by pushing them to merge to be in front of larger company in which the percentage of guarantee and dealing is safer, and it exerts indirect pressure through which it excludes small exchange companies and prevents them from entering the platform to obtain dollars is allowed for large companies. So basically he's saying this is an arbitrary and incorrect method from his point of view, but goes on to say, but it is according to the powers of the central bank, according to its law. So again, the guy seems to be just, not too happy about it, but his job's going away. Well, I understand that. If you've been doing illegal business for 20 years and all of a sudden you have no more business and you haven't changed, I think you're going to be upset. But the fact remains is that's on you, in my view, okay? The next thing that we go back and to counter the gentleman, it says that the recent measures of the central bank will lead to a rise in the dollar and create new ways for it to leak. Well, the main thing is that what we're talking here is that the central bank has put out strict measures. There's 4 strict measures. They put out the first package, second package, third package, and now they put out a 4th package. And that 4th package is to reduce the interfaces for people to be able to get the dollar. Okay? And once they get rid of the dollar, what happens? That parallel market is going to get even worse, to be fair, because the normal basis basics of supply and demand. If you reduce the dollar, it'll become so expensive that they're just not going to want to use it, and or there'll come a time where because they can't get it, they'll be forced to go in to use their own dinar. And that's what this package is dealing with here. And it says that these measures come in the context of increasing compliance by the U.S. Federal Reserve, because it's applying strict standards on the movement of the dollar through the Iraqi financial channels and interfaces. That's the key word. And this will naturally reduce the changes of moving the dollar to finance illegal or other commercial operations related to smuggling or money laundering. So this guy up above is likely part of the process that fits into that category of finance illegal commercial operations related to smuggling or money laundering. I could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like. Basically, this decision will work to reduce the number of financial or banking interfaces. So they're going to reduce the amount of places that you can get access to it, to the dollar. It says he's reducing the number of financial and banking interfaces that will be eligible to offer the dollar. This will give the central bank a greater ability to manage the movement of the dollar offered in the Iraqi economy. And in return, it is expected that these measures will lead to a reduction in the amount of supply of dollars. Well, if you reduce the supply, it goes up. Okay, so the dollar in the markets, which will directly lead to rises in the exchange rates, and this will, let's see, lastly, will be associated with the creation of new ways to divert the dollar, especially since the measures are still vulnerable to penetration and can be circumvented. So they're basically getting to the point where they're going to eradicate that market, and that is going to be a positive sign for us. Some of my notes were so we can see just how far along we are in the line to get that ticket to the ride. So I think that we are in that line to get a ticket to ride, and that means that Iraq is going to obviously have a flight, and that's going to be out of the public market into the private sector, which is a private sector, which is the international global financial system. And it's basically like we're sitting here, we got our tickets, and all of us are on standby because Al-Sudani has basically given his time frames for results, and so we'll see if they can meet those results. And so we're just not sure if we're standing by for a ticket on the flight on the 15th, or if we're standing by the flight for the 24th, or by the end of the month. We just don't know yet, but we can obviously see we're in a good space, and those articles that I talked about going into the private sector are flat out phenomenal. So I appreciate everybody being here on a Friday. Thank you so much for all your support. We in Patreon have all the crew members. We have Pompey Peter, Day Trader, Petra. We have Sunkissed, Gigi, Samson, brings all the news. So I want to shout out to everybody and more, because the Patreons that we have in our Discord group, they too are part of this process because they have input, they have ideas, and we all talk about that stuff on a regular basis, 24/7 effectively. So hey, come join us, and if you like my content, please subscribe and hit those donate buttons if you'd like to keep the content rolling in. Thank you so much.
Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.